Jacksonville Jaguars, Kieran, they are in your locale. You were making the case from earlier as being the 1A or 1B in this division. They were a 4-win team last season. Not good on offense, not good on defense, very few high points. What's changed and what's the case for them this year?
Well, the main thing that changed is Balky is gone, and the vibe is totally different there. Peterson just outstayed his welcome and was too tight to press Taylor, but that's another story for another day. But it's definitely different. It's a different vibe. It's much more positive. It's definitely different. Gladson is, as you've seen, he's a different cat. He's a different dude, and he brings a different kind of energy there. And Cohen's got a great offensive mind. And Tony Baselli is just an absolute legend. If you're ever in his presence, it's a great person. So it's a great kind of changeover in Jacksonville. Talking to some people at the game last week, and even from the local press, there's a lot of question marks still. I don't think training camp has gone exactly as a lot of people thought. The intensity and some of the performances have not exactly been what people have been expecting. Hunter's been playing a lot on defense, which we all know he's going to play at both sides of the ball. That's just how it is. How much on either side is up for debate at this stage. But he's the big prize coming in. But there's still a lot of questions for me. Trevor, I mean, yes, Balky is gone, but a lot of the players that didn't perform while he was there are still there. I mean, there's still huge Trevor Lawrence questions. The running back tandem, I'm still not sold on. I think they're lightweight, Etienne and Bigsby. They got a couple of weapons in. De'Ami Brown. They've shored up that O-line hole that they used to have. They brought in Hainsey and Patrick McCarry from Baltimore at guard. So they've shored up some of the places that they need help in. A little downgrade maybe on tight end. Evan Engram is gone, and they brought in, well, they didn't bring in, but Brenton Strange has always been there. But there's still too many question marks. I was kind of sold and brought up with the hype about a month or two ago. But now that I can see what the Texans are doing and how they're kind of restocking and reloading, there's just a couple of question marks coming up with me. I mean, again, it comes down to Trevor Lawrence. Can he stop turning the ball over and killing the momentum of the team? Again, with the running back, can he stop turning the ball over? The defense, I know it was a preseason game, and I'm not going to put any stock in it, but a lot of people in the press box were grumbling and mumbling about the performance of the defense and how the tackles just weren't there. There wasn't enough intensity, even though it was one of the 3 preseason games. Tackling issues, they've resurfaced again. The secondary, there's questions. I think at this stage, Darnell Savage is probably the best player in the secondary. So for me, I mean, we'll discuss it at the end. I think the Texans and Jags will be up there when at the business end of it. Who's going to come out on top? I'm not sure. I know the Jaguars will make progression this year, but will they have enough to overtake the Texans and their kind of juggernaut on defense? Because when you stack up the two defenses, the Texans are miles ahead right now. How it will play out when the season starts remains to be seen. But the question marks for me are Trevor Lawrence, the defense and their physicality, and can Cohen kind of do what he did with Baker in Tampa and just somehow turn Trevor Lawrence into a more robust kind of a tougher and a guy that doesn't turn the ball over or make stupid picks in key moments. So I know they're going to be much better than last year. How much better, I'm not sure. And will that better record be enough to get to get the top spot or even a wild card spot? So a lot of question marks in Jacksonville still, but excited to see what comes of it, especially Travis Hunter. And of course, BTJ is a great prospect, but a lot of question marks for me. And I'll give my pick at the end.
Kieran Donovan, I think Kieran made a good point there about, I guess, what happened with Baker Mayfield when Cole was there is that, what Trevor Lawrence needs, I think, is the team needs to be less reliant on him having a good day and find a way to be more dynamic and change up what they are doing on offense. But yet the biggest strength of this offense is in the pass game. It's Trevor Lawrence, but depending on how he feels, it's Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, which should be a good duo. I know Brian Thomas Jr. had good yards after catch stats last year, but in terms of the eye test, was a bit hit and miss. They brought in De'Ami Brown as well from Washington, somebody who's touted as being potentially a good WR3, but we're not quite sure how he'd fit into a new scheme. And I think there's a good point being made there that if you're looking to try and balance out the run game and the offensive line playing in a certain way that the run game could be effective, there's still question marks there as well. So as much as the Jags probably have the talent to really put it up to the Jags this year, execution is going to be really important.
Yeah, and while Travis Hunter is getting all the headlines, and rightly so, I'm really excited to see, again, something I've spoken about on a lot of shows, is this transition from a great offensive mind in a offensive coordinator to a head coach in Liam Cohen. Can he take the step and can he get the best out of a Trevor Lawrence? And you guys alluded to it. He's the guy who's credited with getting the best out of Baker Mayfield last season. He was with Matt Stafford during some of his best statistical seasons, and he coached at Kentucky in 2021 and got the best statistical season out of. Can you guess who it was? No takers. Will Levis. But credited with getting the very best out of Will Levis.
End the Will Levis conversation now. I'll have to depart the show. This time last year, I was embarrassing myself.
I was writing down my notes for the Titans, which are coming to later on. I was like, thank God I don't have to mention Will Levis this time. I'm sure you had to bring him up.
Yeah, I came across it I think it was not my take. It was someone else mentioned it on a different show, but it was something I chuckled at. But
it was a hot take here last year. It was a ballsy move last year to say that Will Levis was going to lead this team, the Titans team, to the playoffs. What an absolute disaster that was. Who said that, Shane?
I don't know. Some spoofer from the north side. I don't know.
But look, if Liam Cohen, if he can pass that test and if he can transition into this head coaching role and develop that relationship with Trevor Lawrence, this is a guy who was compared to Peyton Manning when he was coming out of college. He was compared to John Elway. He was compared, when he came into the league with Andrew Luck. And so far in the main, he's failed to live up to the billing while having some flashpoints. And his talent and his ceiling is undoubtedly extremely high, but he just hasn't been able to. He just hasn't been able to do it. And so, will Liam Cohen prove to be this quarterback whisperer? Will he be the guy that fixed Trevor Lawrence or went away to fixing him? And look, I think Brian Thomas Jr. is potentially an absolute star. I think he's one of the best receivers in the league. And bringing in Travis Hunter takes some of that attention away from him. And we talk about number ones and number twos, and it's very hard to have a real star number one without a Robin to his Batman, so to speak. And so if Travis Hunter can even be that, that might further elevate Brian Thomas Jr. with, elevated play from Trevor Lawrence and, potentially make this one of the more potent offenses in the division. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Brian, your predictions on Will Levis obviously didn't turn out well. What about your predictions on this year's Jags?
I'd be a lot more optimistic. I thought Kieran was very much sold on. Obviously, he's tailing back slightly, but I think what was striking was $65 million spent on the opening week of free agency on the offensive line over three players, and obviously there's splits there and thereabouts. But that's a kind of a serious investment, and that's an acknowledgement of while Trevor Lawrence was struggling last year, he struggled by and large because, again, back to the scenario we spoke about with the Texans, the offensive line struggled mightily throughout the course of the season, and we said the run game wasn't effective. Well, they weren't getting very many holes over the course of the season. And I think if they can get this offensive line working right again, I think there's a huge opportunity. I do like the Brown wide receiver side. I think that's a nice complement to Brian Thomas Jr., and I think we might see even more from him in the second year. I think he floated slightly under the radar to a certain extent LSU because of the Malik Neighbors. I suppose great season which he had. Another thing, the schedule is brutal, Shane. Sorry, I know we look at this on paper and we say, they'll win this game, they won't win this game, and for every NFL season is very different. So I bear that in mind. But when you look at the schedule, they've got to get off to a very fast start in terms of beating the Panthers week 1 because it's Bengals the week after. They got the Chiefs in week 5. They got the Texans, which that'll be a major game already come early in the season, and then they got the 49ers on the road, all in the space of the first 5 weeks of the season. They're going to have to find ways to snatch some of these games and put themselves in a position then coming down the stretch to win the division. If they get off to a 1-4, 1-5 start, that'll be very difficult. Difficult on a new GM, difficult on a new head coach. But I think they'll be there challenging. I probably am going to pick them to win the division, Shane. To be honest, I don't want to be giving away too early, but I think we're going to see a renaissance in terms of similarities to what we saw with Joe Shane, Brian Dable, first year, new GM, new head coach. They revisit the playoffs come the end of the season.
Yeah, there is a sleeping giant element to the Jags, and it's probably helpful to their schedule, the fact they're only playing one game in London this year, although maybe that might have helped them in previous seasons.